Welcome back, everybody, to another review of Stephen Moffat's final series of Doctor Who. Just before we get started, there are a few announcements I'd like to make. Firstly, go and check out the Discord server. Some lovely people on the internet have created for me. Link is in the description. And you will notice throughout this review that I'm no longer using footage from the episode to support my points. This is because 2 weeks ago you may recall a severe problem with YouTube's deluded copyright machine that blocked my content despite I disputed it. I don't think I can deal with having problems like that if the future of my channel is to remain intact. So anyways, that's enough dreary news. Let's jump right into Smile. As everybody has pointed out already, the writer of this episode is Frank Cottrell Boyce, infamously known amongst Whovians as that guy who wrote that appalling episode in Series 8 where a forest springs up all over the world. Now, since the series has been announced, the clip of Bill saying, "It speaks emoji," has struck fears of lunacy beyond imagination for some, but I was relieved to find that there wasn't going to be any children in this episode. Oh. The episode opens with the Doctor explaining to Bill that you must stand in order to operate the TARDIS, which was a nice bit of fun. I have to say, it's rather entertaining to see Bill asking all these questions that a newbie to the old time and space game would. It gives her character a level of curiosity and displays her keenness to learn. Nardole comes in like the old man's forgotten to take his meds this morning, and this conversation was also rather humorous. I have no problem with Nardole being absent from this section of the story. It's another smash through the wall of low expectations that he was going to be permanently annoying throughout the series. Far into the future, on a distant planet, a woman with a weird alteration of Princess Leia's haircut gets reduced to bones right before our eyes. Jesus Christ! It's like Black Mirror all over again. Just from that reaction alone, you can probably tell that the bad guys in this episode were a much more pleasant experience than the Puddle, although I think they could have been a little more creative about it. They mention later in the episode that the nanobots that kill are also what is keeping the entire ecosystem in place. Imagine the possibilities you have with this. Say, have somebody fall through the floor and then being sealed in with the concrete that they were just standing on. That would be terrifying. Those little robots seem to serve little purpose as well, aside from getting the shot of Bill saying, "It speaks emoji!" I understand the design stems from the idea that these people that are in hibernation are to be given a warm, friendly welcome by these innocent-looking robots, but as Stephen mentioned over on his spoilerific review, they don't seem to do much at all and feel extremely pointless, especially given how advanced the nanotechnology is in comparison. Advanced though they are, they fly around for seemingly no reason. If all of the buildings are made of the exact same structures, why do they have these drones flying around seemingly doing bugger all? The design of almost everything in this episode, however, is very impressive. The huge chasms of empty buildings are very aesthetically pleasing, right down to the little emotion badges that the two protagonists wear. I found it interesting because the episode seems to be prodding the discussion of whether robots can or should be able to rectify the emotions of human beings. Of course, there is a malfunction within the system itself that kills those that aren't smiling, and that it also cannot recognize the emotions of an individual beyond their facial expressions. If such a problem exists, then it makes me wonder why the robots would need to use these little badges in the first place, when they could just look at the individual and deduce how they are feeling that way. On another positive though, I think Murray Gold definitely brought his A game with the music in this episode. There's some great haunting music that plays when they arrive on the planet, when they're running through the city to escape, and the Doctor's skepticism in the dinner scene is reflected by the music that can be heard. Speaking of the dinner scene, however, you know, I'm probably going to get called a hypocrite for saying this, but when Bill was going on about the bloke utopia thing, I genuinely laughed. And not for the reason you might think. Although no seats are specifically assigned to either of them, the computer system, in all its mighty wisdom and excellence, couldn't identify that despite having two hearts, the Doctor is one person. They have the ability to detect how many hearts are present, and yet they couldn't even program these things to be able to see how many people there are. More importantly, if it thought there were 3 people here, why was the table not laid for 3 fucking people? Had the trailer not ruined the episode's most disturbing revelation, I would be praising the tits off the fact that the Doctor was expecting a skeleton crew, only to be revealed that the crew were in fact skeletons. It's a neat little piece of writing that amused me, but I knew what was coming, and so I think I'm gonna just ignore the rest of the trailers for the rest of the upcoming episodes. Then again, I have been made aware of who the new Doctor is and what actor is going to be returning from previous series, so it's not exactly like you can hide anything anymore. Thanks, internet. We now move on to a part that I also found absolutely hilarious. As much as I find the whole explanation the Doctor gave in order to get out of this situation a little unnecessary, their false happiness was thoroughly entertaining, acting as if they were tourists for some added comedic effect. The Doctor and Bill then conveniently escape the complex. I'm guessing it's down to the fact that those they want to kill have to be kept still, but again, the technology is extremely underwhelming and they could have made them a lot more terrifying. The Doctor and Bill then reunite after their almost pointless separation, where they have a good old laugh about Scottish independence. I made a comment last week about their teacher-student relationship developing, and so far I've not been disappointed. Their conversations in this episode are well written, whilst Capaldi and Mackie bounce off each other extremely well. Given the relative emptiness of the episode, their conversations flourish like a rainbow of dialogue. This is great because not only are we seeing Bill flourish for the first time, but in a sense this is the first time for Capaldi too. For too long did Clara steal the entire show from him, but now Capaldi can truly show his colours whilst displaying how much of an awesome Doctor he can be. They get onto the human spacecraft, and I couldn't help but feel a little disappointed that they couldn't have explored more of the habitation areas designed by the Vati. Having said this, these areas would probably only look like this. Bill stays with the map and the Doctor goes to investigate the ship with her navigating him. I certainly remember my experience of watching this episode for the first time thinking it was nice that the earpiece things served a purpose, when all of a sudden it occurs to Bill she can take a picture from her phone, also used earlier. I looked at the poster for the episode with dread as I usually do, only this event doesn't actually happen in the episode, thank Christ. But even still, it wasn't something that took up too much time or even took us completely out of the story like we have come to expect from the show. It even made me smile at the fact that the Doctor had already memorised the map whilst Bill just stood there like a numpty, making her aware of the assets she has. The Doctor then arrives at the engine room and... wait, haven't we seen this before?
This is going to be a stroll in the park.
It is then revealed that the humans are all waking up from their sleep, but Bill finds some old woman dead and with a magic book at her feet. This part confused me because it creates more questions than it answers. The Vadi killed off the humans that weren't happy, assuming that grief was the same as unhappiness. What have we learned here? What did the fact that human history didn't go quite as planned have anything to do with the machines that want to kill unhappy people? It just gets a little bit ridiculous from this point because, unfortunately, the Doctor just zaps a machine and then everything's okay. If the humans had been revived at an earlier stage in the story, perhaps this episode could have been a little more interesting, because then we could learn about how dangerous the robots started becoming whilst giving us a reason to give a shit about all these people that are now waking up. It felt so rushed at the end that I kind of blinked with confusion like all those people did when the place blew up. But yet also it didn't blow up. The Doctor then just starts rambling on about a magic haddock whilst everybody else is waking up. So who the fuck is honestly listening to him apart from Bill? The robots certainly aren't. They're too busy being reset or whatever the fuck excuse they pulled out of their arse at the end of the episode. More importantly though, what the fuck was that kid doing with that glass of juice? Perhaps had the episode been, say, 15 minutes longer, they might have been able to flesh out the final act a bit more, but it really left a very bittersweet taste in my mouth. I will say, though, that I appreciated the episode left us on a semi-cliffhanger, instead of just some soppy words of wisdom and then introducing the elephant next week. It made me more interested in seeing next week's episode than if it hadn't been there, which is quite interesting. I haven't actually got any points of interest this week. I'm really sorry, guys. So, did it suck? Well, I'm not gonna lie, I had a lot of fun watching it the first time around, but on a second viewing, I can't exactly say this episode was anything exactly outstanding. The interactions with Bill and the Doctor was possibly my favourite aspect of the episode, and some other good points include the music, the beautiful sets and cinematography, and it also had some very funny moments too. However, the story has a very flawed antagonist. The whole episode felt very empty, and the ending was just so convenient that even if McDonald's did delivery, it wouldn't live up to the episode's levels of convenience. I know I was initially quite positive about this episode, but I've looked at this a little more critically, and so I have now decided to give Smile a 6 out of 10. Who wrote that appalling episode of series no, fuck off. As everybody has pointed out already, this is... No, you can't do it. You're a fuckwit. Potential potatoes, oh my fucking god. People that are in hibernation are not to be given a warm... Oh, what the fuck? Fucking dickhead. Their false happiness was thoroughly entertaining, acting as if they were tourists. Oh, fuck's sake. The fact that the Doctor had already memorized the map made me smile, whilst Bill... No, fuck that.